Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you've all been having a super week. We're gonna dive into your reading here, and we're gonna start off with the Starseed Oracle and see what messages they want to give us. I hope that you have been feeling peaceful in your heart, because I hear that some of us have been needing a little bit more of that. And our first message is you got the love. Codependency and boundaries. We're going to look at the expanded message on this one and see what they want to tell us and what they mean by this one. I keep hearing like be patient with yourself. If you've been like hard on yourself, that's the first thing I keep hearing it over and over again. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. So do take time to be patient with yourself if you have been someone who's been a perfectionist or hard on yourself. And this one also talks about the energy of Hadrian. Always I'm tripped up by how to pronounce this. However you pronounce it. So let's see. So these peoples are believed to be the beacons of pure divine unconditional love, who see love in all people and situations. As a result, they can find it hard to have boundaried, independent, healthy relationships because they only see the unconditional nature of those they meet. Do you feel like that's you as a starseed? Do you feel like you have a little bit of that energy within you? You'll know if you tend to be that person who always sees the bright side of someone. And, someone might be like, well, this person's like a boundary crosser, or they're they're like a little bit of a gaslighter. And you're like, yeah, but they also have this, and this. And so if you find yourself that person, maybe you are part of the Hadrians. So they are the lovers of the cosmos. They dive in fast. They're here to learn how to love while in a separate body. To learn to love self first, then establish healthy relationships with others. To remember that the love they seek is already within them. That they truly do have the love all on their own. The message of this card is to review the ways you may need to establish healthier boundaries. If you are of a woman of a certain age, I'm sure this is you, okay? Because those of us who've grown up during this time period, many of us were not given boundaries. We were not taught to have boundaries. And so it can be very difficult learning that now in the adulthood. That's the wonder of finding a great counselor who can help you, right? Further, perhaps you're in a codependent relationship in which you may be losing your sense of self. It's common for starseeds to dive deep into relationships. You know who you are out there. I have been guilty in the past, particularly with those who feel safe and familiar at the soul level. That's really interesting because last week's reading, if you listened, if not, please do go back and listen. I talked about how some of us would have faded meetings with people, faded relationships, and that was karmic and part of a past life experience. And that's really difficult because sometimes we really tap into that and we feel like, oh my God, but I feel like this is faded. And maybe it is. Maybe you really do resonate with this person from the get-go. Maybe you had a past life thing with them. That can all be true. But two things can be true at once though, right? On the flip side, if there are red flags and we have healthy boundaries, that does not mean that we have to accept an unhealthy relationship for us. Even if all those other things are true, we can get whatever lesson we're meant to get out of it on a soul level and move forward, right? So sometimes we get stuck with like feeling like, well, it's faded, and but we have our own free will. We have to exercise our own judgment and free will to situations. Does that make sense? And again, I say this gently, like I do everything, because all of us, I think at one time or another, have probably done this, including myself. So this card also tells us about perhaps you're in a relationship in which you give more than you receive, or perhaps there's a certain volatility to it and you're always unsure where you stand, right? Emotional manipulation, right? Think about that. This card is assigned to do a relationship review and see what energetic agreements you've made, consciously or unconsciously, to acknowledge if there are relationships in which you feel anxious or powerless in which you don't feel like it's safe to relax and just be you, to assess if there are any places of inadequacy that you've used a relationship to soothe and cover up. So something for you to explore is what you're giving out energetically. Now, some of us, we're givers, and maybe our love language is different than other folks, but you'll know in the relationship if you are if there's an unequal relationship, energetic exchange. It can be for that, like that, for short periods of time, right? Maybe you're sick, maybe you're unwell, maybe somebody's helping you out, right? The difference is when it's always like that, and you're always the person who's giving, you're always the person expressing emotion or care and concern, and the other person does not. There's something for you to think about. So our message deep this week, think about boundaries and where you perhaps need to work more on boundaries. Now we're going to move into a message from our mystical shaman and see what guidance they have for us there. And we'll see what they want to say, but this is the card we're getting, is the Ghost Dance. The Ghost Dance. And how is this connected to our other message, which was about healthy boundaries, right? So it's such an important thing to establish. And so this message is about our ancestors and tapping into the healing energy and the medicine of our ancestors. And they are here to help us, to let us know that we are not alive. Remember what I said? Some of us, if you've grown up as a certain time or certain era, your ancestors may not have given you good guidance, or not, I don't want to say given you good guidance, but they may not have really talked about having these healthy relationship boundaries with you. And you may have heard some mixed messages or just things that, are not helpful to you right now, right? In this day and age. And so you can still tap into the healing energy of your ancestors by doing things like creating an altar, which is what this card is talking about. Right, you could. So how you can honor your ancestors if you don't have an altar? Look some up on Pinterest. There's some great ideas. There's no right or wrong way. See what resonates with you. I know on my altar I have pictures of like my father or my grandparents who've crossed over, who I believe are with me, and I frequently light like a white candle when I want their guidance, letting them know, hey, I'm here. What would you like to tell me? And so even though they're not with me, I still get their wisdom, and that is helpful to me. That may be helpful to you also. And so also, this card is also an invitation to step into abundance if it comes your way, if it's offered to you, and to think about the story that you're writing for yourself. Also, this card is about nostalgia, and again, we've talked about that before. If you listened before here, yes, we can have fond memories, but if we don't allow ourselves to be free from the past, then there's no growth for us. Then we're stuck. So yes, we look fondly at those who've crossed, those ancestors that we really missed. But then on the other hand, we also have to think about putting things in their proper perspective and place, right? Which can be hard. So again, there's that balance that we're asked to have, and it may be difficult for us to learn how to do that. Now, we're going to pull some tarot, and we're going to see what our guides would like to tell us from the tarot. And what I hear is we're going to pull some cards that have to do with relationship. Fitting, because our first message was all about boundaries and relationships, right? So let's see what they want to tell us here. Okay. So our first card is this one. Now, this, what are they trying to tell us here? This is the vice versa tarot. If you've not seen this before, it's a pretty nice deck. And it has a flip side, and it can also be this. So you can interpret the message in different ways, which is kind of neat. Or you can read them upside down too. I tend not to read tarot cards upside down, but you can do whatever it is that you feel you want to do. I don't like to have a lot of rules with reading cards. So I originally pulled it this way up. So this is how it landed when I pulled it. And so what is this about? Cycles and in new beginnings. And if you have been wondering about, and again, they asked me to pull cards in terms of relationships. What I'm hearing is, let go of the relationships that don't honor you. Let go of the relationships that don't honor you. You don't have time for that. That's what I hear. You don't have time for that kind of stuff in your life. You don't need that. Do consider where you are in your life, and maybe in the past, maybe when you were younger, maybe you accepted certain things in certain situations when you were still working on your boundaries, or when you were in a different place or in a different career mindset or something like that. But now you have to take care of you. You have to take care of your own energetic boundaries here. Okay, think about the cycle that you're in. There's no time for that. Now our next card, I pulled it this way. I'll show you the art the other way too, but I pulled it this way, right? The Hierophant. So again, I think for some of us, here's the flip side. Isn't that cute? We have probably, again, we're raised with certain traditions, and our families may have guided us with the rules or with how things work, and that's fine. That's all well and good. But think about if you need to modify some of those things, if they no longer fit in with the story you have created for yourself, because you are sculpting your own story. And so, yes, we appreciate the wisdom of our ancestors. But if it's like a tragic story, or or if you grew up with stories about how, sometimes you have to suffer, sometimes you have to tolerate things, we can move on from that. So we can honor the tradition of our loved ones and say, well, this is great. And maybe they gave you the best advice that they could at the time with what they have, with the space that they were brought up in. But you can let go of that, right? You can let go of that cycle. You don't have to continue with that. That's what they're telling you. Mm-hmm. Now, this next one is the Knight of Pentacles. And I drew him this way. This is the Knight of Pentacles. Here's him on the flip side. And if you have been worried about finance, and maybe that's why you haven't been moving on in your relationship, because of finance, again, it's hard to be single, and it's hard monetarily to be single. They're hoping that that you can carve out freedom, and some people may not feel free, and there is and it has to do with physical need for things and abundance and stuff like that. And so it may not be so easy, is what they're saying. They're affirming it might not be so easy, but they're also letting you know to look for the ways in which you can acquire and manifest abundance. So if you have been feeling like I'm stuck in a certain place, and it's because of money or a monetary situation, even though you feel like, well, this isn't the greatest thing for me, perhaps, but I also know I'm stuck. Do think about your financial freedom plan. That's what I hear. Financial freedom plan. Now we're going to pull one final card for the week. I feel like this has been a very heavy reading. We all must be really going through the emotions now, because this one's heavier than usual. But let's see what they want to leave us off with. Let's see what our final message for this week is. Okay. And It's the 10 of Swords. It's the 10 of Swords. The Swords is a tough suit, right? But the 10, we're at the tail end of something. We're at the completion. We have thought, we have planned, we have been in our brains, and now we're done. We're done with that. We're like, you know what? I got to get out of my own head. I'm thinking too much, and I can let that go and keeping myself stuck in a worry cycle and ruminating on it. At this point, you know this is not doing you any favors. It's not helping you in any way. And now you're feeling like, I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to tap into my flow and free myself from this. So if you've been ruminating on stuff over and over again, see if you can free yourself from that. See what you can do to loosen that a little bit. It'll help you out in the long run. That is your message and your reading for the week. I hope it hit you in all the right places. I hope you have a wonderful week, and do take care of yourself and your energy. If this has resonated with you, please do consider subscribing and liking this. I appreciate all of you for listening to me, and I hope you have a wonderful day.